Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's percolating. Good morning. Yeah. Good morning to the people on Facebook. Good morning to the people on IG. Good morning to the people on the YouTube. Good morning to the people on LinkedIn and Twitter too. Java. Percolating. Get a vibe, stay ready. Truth in the cup, keep it strong, keep it steady. Pull up a chair, yeah. Take a sip it with me. Good morning, good people. Java with Jimmy. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, the love percolating. Java with Jimmy. Good morning, that morning. Good morning. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good morning. Yeah, the love percolating. Yeah, Java with Jimmy. Good morning, that morning. Percolating. Yeah, we in it. Yeah, we in it. Good morning. Good morning. Java with Jimmy. Percolating. Yeah, we in it. Yeah, we in it. Good morning. Good morning. Java with Jimmy.
Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. I got it right. I've been messing up a couple of times the last couple of weeks, but good morning, everybody. Today is Testimony Tuesday. We are here early, so I'm going to give folks a couple of seconds to get the notification. But again, welcome to the Java Cafe. Thank you for being with us this morning. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and go ahead and make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you follow us across all platforms except Snap and TikTok, but all platforms at Java with Jimmy. And we're going to get ready to jump right in because we have 2 cups of Java this morning. We have another one at 10 a.m. where we're going to speak with the Boston alumni chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority, talking about their partnership with the American Cancer Society in collecting information and informing by Black women's voices, 100,000 Black women across the United States. And the Boston local chapter is a part of that. And so that's taking place at 10 a.m. However, I have a friend and brother, and I wish I found the picture from, it was years ago. I was in a meeting at the Grove Hall Library with this brother and another brother, and I posted a picture. And I said, we can expect great things from these young men in the future. I want to say that picture was taken 2013, 14, maybe. And here we are today. He's done a lot of great things, from body cams to BECMA. And most recently, he was the chief of economic opportunity and inclusion for the city of Boston. And so this is his first he's sitting down. I'm sitting down over here. Sit down interview. And we're going to talk about a lot. And yes, we'll talk a little bit about his time at the hall. But this brother has a purview that is now further informed that I believe he is a pillar and expert in this ever-evolving conversation around a Black agenda, a Black economic agenda. And so we're going to speak, without further ado, introduce to some and present to others. He's going to get me, but I'm going to say the good Reverend Dr. Segun Idowu, because recently I saw you at Morehouse at the chapel event, and you threw your robe on. Did you preach?
Oh.
Segun, good morning, brother. What's up, sir?
Good morning. Good to see you. First of all, that's a great song that this opens up with. I was we got to get you on the radio. Imagine driving into work, hearing that song. That's a great intro. So
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And immediately I joke about this. This is an insider, but when you hear what's his name, Pharrell's what I can't think of it now. See, I was trying to get you, but I messed up. But I know you have a good ear for music, but I will admit, um, I program the AI to do that. So, but I appreciate it, sir, because I know
Did a
you
good
know
job.
music. I'm trying. I'm trying. And I want to thank you for all your support over the years and helping and pouring into this platform. One of the first few when we did our anniversary, I believe at the underground and a few times, at your position at Beckma. So I want to thank you for that. Shagun, the first thing I want to do is check in and see how you're doing. There's been a lot going on in your life. We know of the transition of the late, great, now Deacon Lawson. And also, you had a life transition, you know what I mean, as far as your professional career. And so I have to ask with all due to my good friend and brother, like, how's Shagun doing? How are you doing?
Well, right now I'm doing great. This has been it's been about 3 months since I uh, left my job. I will say that there hasn't been a day that's gone by that I've experienced any regret. So, uh, and that was something that was planned for. I would say, I had told the mayor, I guess now a year ago, that I was not going to stick around for term two and was going to start looking for other things to do. And so, that was kind of already pre-planned. What was not planned was that at the same time that I made my announcement that my grandmother that she would have as rapid a decline as she did, and that she wouldn't make it to the end of my leaving the job. I mean, part of what informed the timing of my departure was because she was like getting very, very sick. She'd been in the hospital for many months, starting last summer, and I figured, this would be the best time for me to leave because I wasn't able to take care of her as much as I would want to. But she uh, got tired, and so died about a week or so after I made my public announcement. And so planning the funeral and going through all that while at the same time planning the transition to make sure my team was in a good place was very, very difficult in the moment, but made it through. And um, it's been good on the other side. So
I got to see you a couple of weeks out. You look you look different. You definitely look different. You and in the same premise that they say the presidency, ages the president, working in government and in a economic space, in a city that has a history of not always being aggressive toward economic development for the Black community. It can be very challenging. I again want to, we prayed for, we mentioned, Deacon Lawson, and just sending also love to our good. I call her mother, but our it's not Mother Idowu anymore. Um,
Idawu Gray.
Idowu Gray.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she's watching. So, Mother, good to see you in the room, presumably. And so, Shagun, let's just get, like I do with the mayor sometimes, there are some things that may seem contentious or hot button issues or whatever. And to your point, and I was aware about Deacon Lawson, and you had said this to the media, and I asked you, you know, in the framing of P3 and some things going on, was that with Mother Lawson also, was that date expedited? And you had said at that time, I will neither confirm nor deny, that notion. And so with this, I've said it directly to the mayor, I've said it on here. There's a lot of concern around your voice missing along with Jessica Pierre from City Hall. And so, how do you respond to a lot of that concern? How do you respond to all points of speculation? Let me just kill one devil and I'll get you off a screen. Him not being there has nothing to do with stuff that was in legacy mainstream media. So Shagun, um, how do how do you respond to a lot of the chatter, mostly favorable concern, favorable in the fact of what you accomplish, concern in the fact that And what I've said is the agency and the cadence in which you moved within the administration, it's not there. And that is no disparaging to anyone else, interim or whatever. It's I wasn't the only one saying it. So how do you respond to those type of
Yeah.
pieces of chatter?
Well, I started at one thing that you mentioned on the side. I mean, yes, my leaving had nothing to do with anything that was in media 6 months ago, but we all uh, uh, have those types of experiences. So took the shellacking and stayed quiet, even though I didn't want to. And we are where we are. But as I said, the decision was made. You know, a long time prior to that. But in terms of my not being there and what that means for our community, I guess I would say a couple of things. I mean, I appreciated the conversation you had with Carlos a few months ago on power,
Yes.
um, because for me, it is not. So let me start here. Uh, in November 2021, I left the best job I ever had, which was the president of the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, or BECMA, for a role that I did not, I didn't see it as something that would be the best job, but I took it for one really only one reason, and it's a reason I shared with then Mayor Elect Wu at the time, which was I'm coming from the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, not the People of Color Economic Council, not anything else, but I have a very clear focus and an agenda that I have been mandated by the membership, by the board, by my community to help execute, and I'm not going to move away from that agenda when I get into this role. Yes, as Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion, and the name was changed for this specific reason. My focus is all 710,000 residents of the city. My focus is the region, and the health and shape of our economy, and making sure that the benefits are being equitably distributed to my community and other communities that have been marginalized. But I was very clear. Like, I left the Black Economic Council, and the arguments I was making as president and CEO of BECMA still ring true as Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. And those arguments included, when we are investing in and supporting the Black community, everybody benefits, and it has never been true historically in reverse. And so that was my focus, and a lot of the things that we accomplished in the EOI cabinet. And I have to give a shout out to all of the 100 folks that work in that cabinet that are focused on making Bostonians' lives improve every single day. The starting point for many of the programs that we developed, space, scale, the legacy business program, et cetera, started from that frame of reference for myself of what would impact positively the Black community. So I say all that to say it's important that we have people who are from our community, who understand our community in important roles throughout government, and not just these appointed, high level chief roles, but also department heads and folks working in these departments. We can't always focus on just the top dogs. At the same time, our power as a community should be so strong that it doesn't matter who's in these roles, but that if we have our agenda, it's going to be executed no matter what. And so I was a little, so it's like, on one hand, I understood a lot of people pushed back when I made the decision. A lot of folks reached out either online or privately or in public, upset at my decision. But at the same time, I was a little like, we need to really focus on strengthening our power, because we cannot rest our agenda and our progress on one or two or three people that are in these roles, because we can't stay in these roles forever. And at the end of the day, it's impacting our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, and so
Our
it just
financial health.
exactly. You telling me? So like, we can't keep putting our people in that kind of position and then expecting them to do everything. It's like we need to also collectively harness our power, which we have a lot of, but we have to collectively harness it so that it doesn't matter who the next chief of economic opportunity is, and I'm happy to talk about that as well. But that whoever's there, our agenda gets enacted, because certainly there are other neighborhoods in the city that it didn't matter that it was John Barros or me or whoever comes next. Their neighborhood gets what they need and what they want, because they have this collective power. And so I think we need to, marshal our resources and our power to do the same.
We're going to go back to that in just a second, Shagun, but I wanted to ask you to tell us in I had you on when you were in the role at Beckma. I've had you on in the role as the chief, and I don't recall any time, Shagun, that we got to know who Shagun was. Again, I call your mom, my mother. I've seen pictures. We had the opportunity to briefly serve together in ministry at 12th Baptist when I was a youth pastor there, and you were, I believe, just coming back from Morehouse. But we got a sense of who you are. But what about your life experience? What informs this well-informed, knowledgeable, passionate, effective, impactful persona that I think led to that alarm when you departed? There's an agency and a cadence in which you move that is impactful. What in your life experience informed that? Who is Shagun?
Well, I mean, I think I've talked about this before in other spaces, but just to say that today is actually a very meaningful day, May 19th, for two reasons, and it informs this question. May 19th, 1925 is the birth date of Malcolm X, who's also behind me here. And May 19th, 1919 is the uh, birthday of my grandfather. 107 years ago. So Earl Wesley Lawson, born in New Orleans, ministered in Tennessee, got into Morehouse, graduated, met Dr. King when he was a 16-year-old student at the house, came up to Boston to go to Andover Newton Theological Seminary, became a minister, or rather, a degreed minister, and pastored Emmanuel Baptist Church in Malden for about 20 years before moving to Hartford to start Pilgrim Way Baptist Church from the ground up. And now it's a flourishing ministry with a beautiful campus, over in Hartford. And he died in 2012. And, so there's my grandfather, there's my grandmother, who you've mentioned, Frances Lawson,
Say
born in
Deacon.
19
Say Deacon.
Deacon. That's right. She's the first woman deacon ordained at 12th Baptist Church, but posthumously. She practically raised me. She's a very fierce person, someone who's very sure of herself and protected the family and her friends, and had no qualms of telling it like it was, or telling someone about themselves, no matter where we were. She felt like they were being offensive to others in the area. I think those were formative experiences growing up. I mean, especially with my grandfather, having participated in the Civil Rights Revolution here in Boston, having started the Massachusetts chapter of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference with Vernon Carter and Virgil Wood and so many other local legends who were on the Embrace Plaza now. I got to hear stories about the civil rights movement that are not in our history books, and those were lessons that I took to heart much later when I came into my age of reason. I say, because when I was a teenager, I was very, I mean, as you know, I was very different than what you see today. But yeah, so those things, sitting at the feet of my grandfather, learning from him, being cared for, by my grandmother and her instilling her life principles in me, my own parents, both veterans of City Hall. Mom worked at City Hall for 20 years. My father's still there, 25 or 30 years now. All those things helped inform who I, and so I grew up just like believing not just in myself, but in the power of our community, but also that I wasn't ashamed to be Black. In fact, I was extremely proud of the history that we have cultivated here from nothing. This was not our land. We were forced to come here, and even many who have chosen to come to the States as immigrants, many fleeing countries or bad circumstances, but all seeking to make a better life for themselves and their family and their community. And so I'm very proud of where we are because in history, other civilizations have been totally destroyed. And here we are, this year celebrating 250 years of the country. And the fact that we're still here in large numbers um, is a testament to our resilience and our tenacity. So whenever I've been in these rooms, I've just been like, this is who I am. And so been very confident. But also, one thing that kind of and maybe this is arrogance, and I will take the criticism. But I also walked around in my previous role with this air of like, I don't need this job. Okay, like I came here to operate on behalf of my community and to enact an agenda, but I can go do something else, right? And so so meaning that I walked into rooms not really fearing whether it was internally with colleagues or the mayor or other elected officials, or externally with corporate leaders or or other folks in the broader community, just kind of not really fearful about what will this mean for my career or my future or my current job, because that's not top of mind. That was not my goal was not my own elevation or career advancement. It was, I want to, whether I have children or not, 50 years from now, I do not want to be talking about the same thing. I don't want to be talking about $8. I don't want to be talking about less than 1%. I don't want to be talking about deep economic inequities in our community, and or how racism is still keeping our community at a disadvantage and in the conditions that they're still in today. Like 50 years from now, I want actual progress, and I want to be arguing and complaining about new issues. I want to be complaining about first world problems. And so that's always been my focus. And for me, it's not mattered where I am. That's always been my focus. And so I think that's why I kind of walked around like that. And there are others who do the same, who are not on Java with Jimmy, but who are equally, fighting the good fight for our people.
To that point, I wanted to say, there's a lot of chatter. We've both been featured, around the whole Boston Magazine list. And I
Yeah.
always say two things. One is when you don't do it for recognition, like you don't, the recognition means so much more. But the other thing I often say is there are a lot of people in this community. You reference to folks in City Hall, that not just the chiefs and the department heads, but people that are at the desk staying, late and executing permits and things like that, making things happen. And so I just wanted to mention that. Going back a little bit, and Jessica actually, because you didn't talk that much about it, and I teased it a little bit, but Jessica said that when you're grounded in a higher calling and purpose, you don't walk around fearing man. How much does your faith, Shagun, inform your advocacy?
And let me just say too that just because one of the people I'm talking about, one of the folks who was in the hall who was doing a really important work, was not afraid of of being herself, and executed masterfully on behalf of our people. So happy she's here. Um, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing if I didn't have faith. If I did not believe that either actions that I have been taking or will take were pre-planned and guided by a higher, be it by God. I mean, I don't know how. Uh, I actually don't know how I would do the things I've been doing, or believe the things I believe, or um, suffered the things that I've suffered, if I did not believe that God's got my back, and that God is the one ordering my steps, um, and that um, and that we are going to thrive and succeed no matter what happens with me. And so there's also just like, I mean, the Bible is littered with stories of of people overcoming in spite of, right? Like Moses didn't make it all the way to the promised land, but uh, but still, that was not you know the people had faith in God. He was a leader, but not the only leader. And so so I've just kind of, scripture has kind of given me also kind of a grounding in the fact that, like, It's not about me. I am fortunate that I have this confidence of just not caring about what other people think or what other people do, because at the end of the day, here's the thing I want to get accomplished on behalf of my people. But I also know that whether it's like it also doesn't need to be me. There are other leaders that are called and will be lifted up in order to lead our folks forward. Um, so I always just stay in this idea that everything I'm doing is in my time and according to a plan that I, you know, do not understand, and I'm just following what I'm supposed to be doing. But at some point, it's going to also be just be like, all right, you're done, move out of the way. So
And
that's fine.
I'll say to you, Shagun, in full honesty, and I don't know if I've ever said this, but some years ago, my generation, my experience in my late 20s and 30s was I didn't experience, and I was in ministry at that time, and always known as a James is youth ministry and outreach and street ministry.
I still have you saved
And
on my phone as Elder James Hills. So just so you know.
Reverend Brown's watching, he's going to enjoy that. What that picture around that time, Shagun, I made a conscious decision to step back. And what I mean by that is the older generation wasn't passing the baton. I knew what it was to want to serve and lead and things like that. And you are one of the people that when I made that conscious decision to kind of step back and how things evolved or whatever, to your point about if it's destiny, I need to let you know that you were one of the, I was so confident in leadership that you were executing and exerting at that time. And so we're going to get into one of your friends is in the building acting up, Brother Curtis Rollins. Uh,
Good brother.
um, I to your point about moving aside or whatever, I think that lends into this. You'll cover it in this next question. Um, how would you describe the state of Boston's or the region's Black economy in one word?
um,
Mr.
uh,
Articulate with 8,000 letter words that one
exactly.
word,
I spent 8 minutes answering one question. You want me to now boil a very
one
nuanced
word.
topic into one word? Um, uh, well, it's on the tip of my tongue, but now I can't think of it. Uh,
That's never happened.
schizophrenic. Um, Now, do I get to explain what I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
or
I'm
we're
good.
just gonna
You
move
know what,
past it?
Jessica? Jessica, I'm not messing with you. She said poop. Um, you said schizophrenic, and the reason why now we're going to get into the agenda piece, and the reason why I went into that, and it's funny that Curtis is on, is because my belief is that the state that we're in now is always dependent upon the past, with a hope of being real about where we are with the eye toward the future. I asked Curtis some months ago, how did we
Mm.
get to where we are now with Boston's Black leadership and Black agenda? And Curtis said, because people didn't have a retirement plan.
Yeah, well, that's true
And
too.
so you said schizophrenic, give the context, and let's talk about the baton and how we get, you used the word agenda before. I'm going to, do we even have a Black economic agenda, to your point about no matter who's in office? So there's a whole lot to unpack, and we got a good 25 minutes. And so let's go. You said schizophrenic. Give us the context, sir.
Well, and maybe that's not the right, but the let me because I'm trying to think of the word, but I can't think of it. So schizophrenic was the first one that came to mind in terms of like this duality, this because on one hand you have um, a growing group of classist. So there's a growing group of Black people who are doing very well in the greater Boston economy and region. Folks, whether it's the older generation who planted roots many decades ago, have strong businesses and relationships and are benefiting from those relationships and doing very well. Um, there are transplants who are moving to the city in big numbers, getting really good paying jobs, in the innovation economy, and are doing very well. But you also have another growing group of Black people who are not doing well, who, even though might be on paper considered part of the middle class, and that means earnings of more than 70 or $80,000. And this, I'm just saying this; these are the terms. I'm not saying that that's an actual. When you have reports coming out saying you get 150,000 to survive in the city, that is a feel middle class. But I'm just going based on government definitions.
Yep.
But when you have a growing group that is, that are on the uh, kind of hanging by a thread between middle class and poverty because of healthcare expenses, living expenses, transportation expenses, um, education expenses, the black tax, essentially, right? Earning less than their white peers. Um, there's an economic development report that we were working on that would love to see get published at some point that said, though, that less than half of Black and Brown residents are making a livable wage here in Boston, and that's not for a stat for us to sit and just say that now we know it. The purpose of this report that I commissioned about 2 years ago now, was to look at the Boston 2030 plan that was developed under now Secretary Walsh, because that was published right before COVID. And so it was like, now that COVID has happened, how do we adapt to this new economy? What, all this money that got injected into Black and Brown communities after George Floyd, what's the impact? So that still is what's coming out. So I say all this to say that there's this duality. On one hand, you have a group of Black people who are doing really well, considering, and that group is growing. But you also have too many people in this pool who either are on paper doing okay, but are getting hit on every single side by life and a system that was not set up for our benefit, and a growing group of folks who are living in poverty. And that is something that as a city we have not wrestled with or tackled head on. We have organizations, thankfully, like ABCD, DSNI, and others who are focused on addressing poverty head on. But I can't think of any mayoral administration or gubernatorial administration that has named the problem, identified it, and said, "Here's how we're going to address it." And honestly, I think you had on your show like a year ago, talking about Black men and Black women, and because there's always this ever brewing debate. But studies show, and you can talk to Dr. James Jennings, who I hope you'll have on your show one day. If you focus on Black mothers and elevating Black mothers and getting good paying jobs and childcare services, et cetera, everything, whole community changes automatically. And so anyway, so that the state of our economy is like, it's schizophrenic. Maybe that is the best word, right? Because depending on who you're talking to and people's personal experiences, like some people are doing okay, some people are not doing okay, but we have to be really concerned about who's not doing okay, because the folks who are doing okay, first of all, it might be growing, but it's tentative, right? All it takes, some of these people are still 1, 2, 3 paychecks away from falling backwards. And so we have to really focus on laying a solid foundation for everyone to stand on. Because right now, especially with the state of the country, that might all get washed away.
You literally are going into kind of the next segment. I just want to acknowledge a couple of comments here. One, Jessica says that it's the Alice worker, assets limited, income constrained, employed. We used to, when I was in school, it was called the working poor. And Counselor Julie Mejia is in the room, and she referenced it to being crumb living. I think that's on the individual spaces. And we've often heard in the spaces of advocacy for a macro dollar for the Black community that we've, settled for crumbs. And so I think that can be applicable to both. And she also mentioned, I really appreciate you naming the realities. And so with that, and also naming, because I was going to ask you, this has been the case pre Ronald Dump 2.0
Yeah.
in the context of, and I don't know, you can tell me, you're a financial sort of impact expert. Many have said that we haven't seen the full impact of the national politics, the climate.
Yeah.
Do you agree that we haven't seen the full impact yet in the context of what you just said? Now it's going to be exponentially compounded with what's going on nationally. And I'm
Yeah.
going somewhere with this question.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you even see this on a presidential level. This is why there's always this criticism about how Democrats have to come clean up the mess and Republicans are creating all these problems. But you don't really see those problems until the Democrat takes over. Because I mean, on the national scale, it takes years for the economy truly to feel the impact of decisions that are being made. And they know this. I mean, even on the congressional level, even though a lot of times our media will hype us up around certain legislation, some of those things, I mean, like the big, beautiful bill that got passed last year, some of those things don't go into effect until 27, 28, 29.
Yep.
And so then we'll feel the real impacts of legislation from years ago. And, knock on wood, a different party wins in the next presidential cycle. But that also is setting them up because then we will start feeling the effects of decisions made years ago. But the way our minds work, we will blame whoever is in office at that time. So just to say, so absolutely, we have not felt the effects. We're still feeling the effects from the 2008 crash. These things take a long time to recalibrate and reset. So
With that being said, also to the notion of no matter who's in office, no matter the state of things, one of the things that I wanted, and I know who I have on, so I actually have notes with my good brother today. You referred to an agenda in your opening, no matter who's in office, no matter, and that's presidential, whatever. Does Boston have a black agenda slash economic improvement, decreasing the rate? Racial wealth gap presumably would be a part of it by your purview, and you're being accustomed to certain ways of moving based on your grandparents and watching people. Do you feel we have a black agenda that is executable and able to be measured at present? Yes or no?
no.
Okay. Context as
I mean,
look, Curtis. I'm not asking you to come in and Curtis, where's it at? Curtis, yes or no?
well, Curtis is right. I mean, there are individual Black Bostonians who have an agenda and have an idea of what things could look like. And I had an agenda, like I said, coming into my role, and I did what I could to execute some of that agenda. And but do we have, like, for instance, and I shared this with some folks after I made my decision publicly. There weren't a group of people who sat me down and said, "Here's what we're going to do." And it's not a criticism. It's just to say that, yeah, like we don't. So when I think about power, yeah, there's not like a group of Black folks who are, because I don't think it needs to be. And listen, I believe in community participation, but 100 people in a room are not going to make a decision. And we all know this. As much as we all say we want community to do XYZ, we have all been in community meetings. We are not going to build an agenda with 500, 1,000 people in the room, because we all have just different perspectives. That's just what it is. We also don't have to be on one specific, printed paper agenda, right? Our community is vast. We have different priorities, whether it's by ethnicity, whether it's by neighborhood, or even street level, like here in Boston, where you're not from Roxbury, you're from Dale Street. So it's like, so it's okay to have multiple agendas. But no, I mean, I don't know what that agenda is. And I will also say, because I see this pop up on your page sometimes too, like the elected officials, and this is my personal opinion.
Oh, I was going to try to squeeze it in
It
that.
is,
So let's
yeah.
go.
So it is, in my opinion, it is not up to elected officials to have the agenda. It is up to the community to say, we are electing you to execute this agenda. So every time stuff is happening in our community and we get upset that Black elected officials don't have, here's the bullet point, whatever, in my opinion, the purpose of power and these powerful positions is we have collectively decided here are the things that we want to get done. And the value of you being a state representative or a city councilor or even a mayor is to execute these, 3, 4 things on our agenda. It is not the other way around. And that's why we always get disappointed. I remember when Michelle was running, and I'll back up even before that, when Marty was running for reelection, and people were saying, "Oh, well, what's his agenda for Black people?" I don't care what his agenda for Black people is. I have my agenda of what I want a mayor to execute when they are in this role, so I feel like we just have it reversed sometimes. Um, so yeah, so yeah, so
I,
no is the
I
answer.
no is the answer. And then I want to ask you, as we have about 8 to 10 minutes left, is to, I referenced to Curtis's answer. Curtis's answer that day on GBH was people didn't have a retirement plan. And then
Yes.
Nia's answer was that people were being, what did she say? Bought and bossed. Whether they were imperfect or not, Shagun, we did have some coalesce groups that at certain iterations of issues in Boston, they were able to go and knock on the mayor's door. We're lacking that. How did we get here? And then I have to ask you to cast vision on to your point of, and we sat, and when you said, and Thaddeus said this some years ago, we don't always have to be unified. And I think it was you that added, but we maybe need to be uniformed. And so how did we get here? And then how do we get out of this sunken place? Wow, to your schizophrenia point, the duality of the impending, what did I say? The full impact of things to come. How did we get here? And how do we, in a dual manner, proactively get ready, but then also kind of buffer what's to come?
Well, first, I don't know if I said we don't have to be unified, but uniform, but I will take credit for saying it sounds good at least. So I agree with Curtis and I agree with Nia, but the context and the nuance is important. So it is true. We don't have an exit strategy for really for any of our leaders. I always make this comparison. I was talking to Imari at Embrace about this when I was still at BECMA. Like for the white communities, particularly white political community, they have the Harvard Institute of Politics, the IOP, right? So if you leave government, you can go to Harvard to be a fellow for like a year. You get a stipend, and during that time, you're doing some lectures and maybe writing, but you have a place that you have landed. You're making some income, and you're setting yourself up for your next career move. We have other think tanks that do the same thing: the Cato Institute, the Center for American Progress, the Heritage Foundation. These
Ugh.
are all places that exist. Well, yes, but at the end of the day, it's the same model that you're in a leadership role. You want to leave. You have a place to land to generate some income, so you're not getting your feet completely cut out from under you, and then you're setting yourself up for your next move. What is that for the Black community? We don't have that in Boston that I know of, and I was building up, Beckman to be one of those places. But the point is that I can't blame electeds for staying in their roles for however long, because we as a community have not created that exit strategy. And I'm not saying, by the way, like, the person with 3 jobs living in Roxbury has to come up with that plan. I'm using community broadly as just like we
Yes.
have not, done that, even the folks that are doing well. And then Nia's not wrong, right? So listen, there's 2 things that politicians care about: money and votes.
Votes.
And I don't know why that offends people. Like that's as basic as we can get. If you're running a campaign, you got to be able to pay your staff. You got to be able to buy the literature that you send out. You got to be able to buy ads. It's a very costly endeavor. So yes, the people who are giving you money, you are going to pay attention to, because you want to honor investment they're making in your campaign. These are not tax deductible donations. Like this is, if I give you $100, that's $100 that's gone. I'm not getting that money back. And the same thing for votes. If I am, in a country where voting, is going down, like, yes, I'm going to pay attention to the people who are actively engaging with me and with the community in this way. So, this idea that I don't have to do any of that and still need to be tended to, I don't fully agree with. I get it because, like, at least if it's going to be an entry point for you to participate, but but I think it's important. So the idea that people are bought and bossed, sure, but all that says to me, or gives instruction to me, is that we need to be better at who we're giving our contributions to and how we're directing, because it's also the accountability piece, right? So the other thing is, if you're giving money to a campaign to do things, when that person gets in office, if they are not doing that, stop giving them money. Stop, find someone else to run, right? Show that you have some power and agency, because that it's going to be responded to. But if I know as an elected official that you're going to continue to donate to my campaign, host fundraisers, that I'm going to get the same votes I got in the last election, why am I going to switch up? So there's a little bit of like we just need to pay more attention and change our tactics sometimes. And the same is true for mayor, governor. One of the bad things, I think, the legacy of Mayor Menino is, who I adored and all that stuff. But just to say that, like, one of the lingering things that's happened is because of how powerful he was, people are still afraid of the mayor's office. And so we are giving a lot of power and authority to a role that actually doesn't have as much, unless but we are giving it to them, to these roles, right? And I'm not singling out the current mayor. I'm just saying these roles only have as much power as we give them. If we all changed our minds and said, we're going to ignore that person and we're going to focus here, things would change. But again, we so people donate to these campaigns because they think they have to, because if they don't, then then the power of this office will be used against them. I wish people understood that when it comes to, at least to local government, I remember in my second year, someone was like, "Oh, what's your experience?" Someone who served in the previous administration. And I said, based on all the things that you all said to me when I was asking people, what is it like to be part of the mayor's cabinet? I said, I thought it was going to be like Game of Thrones. I thought I was going to have to be looking over my shoulder, that people were going to be, attacking me and throwing things in front of me and finding ways to destroy my agenda. I said, every day is like Veep. Like you walk around, you're just like, it is amazing the city is still standing. And so, so I just say all that to say that they're right, and in some ways, but also, to your point of how we got here, again, I think part of it is that we keep ceding our responsibility to others. And yes, we live in a representative democracy, and so expect that our electeds and appointed officials are going to move in our best interests. But it doesn't happen without our involvement. These jobs, look at anyone's job, right? You're not thinking about you're thinking about what you can get done today. Check the things off of your list. Unless you have the squeaky wheel who is constantly reminding you of these other things that you need to do, it's not malicious as to why those things don't happen, but you just have to keep making yourself known and your agenda known, and then holding people accountable if they don't.
Jessica's point was sometimes you have to crash. I won't use the term crash out, but I get her point to where, there's an energy that I was familiar. Well, Segun knows. There was an energy that I used to employ. I still every now and then employ it when I need to. I had a state official call me the other day and said, as much as you evolved, that email was definitely old Jimmy. I want to just clarify one thing, Segun, before we get ready to wrap up. Brother Jordan Clark, Java with Jimmy and Segun Idowu, I understand the intended point, but schizophrenia is not the right metaphor. The concept sounds
Thank you, Jordan.
close. Double consciousness, By fruit, say it. What's by fruit?
Oh, the bifurcated consciousness or
Yes, that
multiplicity
one. Yes,
attention
yes.
without pathologizing mental illness. So first of all, thank you, Jordan, and it's good to see him. And obviously, not my intent, which is why I was saying like this is
We did
not the
say
right
that.
word, but
Yep.
for some
Yep.
reason it's like but I completely agree with Jordan, and thank you for the alley oop there and
Thank you,
explaining
honey.
what I was trying to get out of my head. So
Listen, let's take it to the word. And all thy getting, get an understanding. Brother John says that's not true. The power is concentrated in the mayor's office because of the city charter. I mean, from it's that
which I'm not. It'd be good to know
I believe
which
he
part
was
he's.
talking about the power in reference to concentrated in the mayor's office, maybe in reference to power not lying with us, or I'm not sure if it's in reference to the council.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just telling you from someone who was sitting at the tables and on the inside, our community has a lot more. So right now, and I might have said this to you offline before, like I think the conversation that we have to have, you know, ourselves is first of all understanding the difference between power and influence. So on that point, I will agree with John. There's a difference between power and influence. Right now, we have a lot of influence. We don't have a lot of, or we're not utilizing a lot of our collective power to enact certain things. And power does not always look like taking over city hall or organizing on Facebook or whatever. Power is not always loud. Influences, but power is not always loud. So, but I guess what I mean here is that, um, you know, a mayor isn't a dictator. And so, sure, the power to do certain things is concentrated in the office and kind of dispersed through the cabinet for each chief to execute in whatever agenda. Because of, the other thing is like it's not like first of all cabinet meetings. It's not like we're meeting every morning and someone being okay. This is what you're going to do. What you're going to do. Like it really. I wish you all really could understand how this thing works or doesn't work. Um, and and again, for me, those are pathways for us to take advantage of and to exploit really for the benefit of our community. So, yes, power in the sense of like politically of what is able to be executed, the mayor's office is really important. The council has limited powers. Same for state reps and state senators. And so,
6, 7, but sorry.
well, no, I mean, it's true. I mean, and it's intentional. So, I mean, I'm glad Councilor Mejia is here. She can comment. I mean, but okay, the budget, and we just gave them more power after 100 plus years to make some
Yep.
small changes to the budget, but they're not introducing the budget. They have to wait for the mayor's office to propose.
It's reactive
Um,
versus it
and
being
then, right. And then, ordinances and resolutions. And what you've seen coming from this council, a lot of are resolutions which have no power. They can help stimulate conversation. Um, but it can't direct agencies to do stuff, right? And so some of the stuff you see for show coming from this council has no, I mean, it's great for a headline, but other than that, and I'm not diminishing the power of the council. Again, John is right. I mean, the way the city charter is set up, you
on
know,
that perspective. Yeah, per
that's
charter.
it's what it is. But we would benefit from understanding what, like, and I think this is what you keep bringing up, James. Like, if all the councilors of color on the council and all of the representatives and senators of color were part of a block and said, here's what needs to happen, yes, that would have an impact. But that needs to come from us telling them, here's what you need to be doing, right? And it can be conversation. We don't have to be combative, but it does need to be, here are the 2 or 3 things that this year we want to get accomplished and focus on those things. We can't be broad. So next time I'm on, I'd love to talk about like what we did for the body
I was going to
cameras.
ask about a series, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, for the I mean, if there's anything that I learned from the experience of forcing the police department with Shakia Scott and all the folks that were part of BPCAT to adopt body cameras, and so far as I know, the only city in the country where the policy was informed by the community.
Yep.
Like we identified one thing that we wanted, and we wrote the rules. We said, here's how we want it to be done. And so that's always informed whether I was at Beckma, whether I was in the city. I didn't just think about with my team, like, I want no racial wealth gap. It was, let's get specific about the thing that we think will move us forward and the specific solution to getting it done. And I think the same thing when we talk about an agenda needs to be the same thing. Okay, we want more housing, affordable housing. Great. What communities are we targeting? What types of housing are we talking about? What's the AMI? Like, we need to
Who's
be really
building it? Who are
granular.
developer
Right,
partners?
right.
Segun, I have to chime in only because I have another guest that I need
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
do a whole
Yep,
different
yep.
link. But you referenced about coming back, and I would like, and we can set it up offline. But to the scripture and all that, getting understanding. And I will also say that um um you weren't in there. You got some things done while in there, but there's some byproducts that our community will feel the benefit because of that experience. You're from the ground, and now you've been in a municipality. And so I do have to wrap up in 30
Mhm.
seconds. What's next for Segun Idowu? 30 seconds.
Oh,
What's
well,
next?
I launched my own advisory firm, but I think the next time on the show we can talk about some of the things the seeds I've been planting, which I believe would be major and will advance the
Oh,
same
we'll book
agenda
you
that
for
we
next week
talked
if you're
about.
free. Gun, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. And I'll follow up after this 10. And the platform is here, and we can work out some sort of series because there's a lot of education information that is that automatically comes out of a conversation with you. So thank you, brother.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, sir.
Same here.
Folks, I hate to cut this brother off real quick, but we have to get ready for the deltas that are literally coming on in 3 minutes. So we'll see you back in the Java Cafe in 3 minutes. Thank you.